have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Hey, what do you say, everybody? Here we go. It's Friday. Hope you're as happy as we are that it's a Friday, September 5, and great to see you on the Bill Press Show. Here we are at our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where it's going to get busy again because the president is on his way back from Wales. It will be soon. And Congress on their way back from their, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many weeks they've been away. But they'll be back next week. Meanwhile, on this Friday, what a lot of news to cover. Joan Rivers passing away yesterday at the age of 81. On the one hand, everybody mourns her death. On the other hand, everybody is laughing, thinking of all the great lines that she has put off over the last 3 decades at least, if not more, that she's been entertaining us. Nobody's sacred with Joan Rivers, starting with herself. In Virginia, Thomas Jefferson must be rolling in his grave. Virginia's starting to look so much like Illinois. Former Governor Bob McDonnell found guilty on 11 out of 13 counts of corruption. His wife Maureen guilty on 9 out of 13 counts of corruption. They're going to go from the State House to the Big House in a big way. President Obama wrapping up the NATO summit in Cardiff, Wales, with agreements from our European allies on stepping up the pressure on Vladimir Putin in Ukraine and helping the United States to roll back ISIS in Iraq and Syria. BP found guilty of being the number one firm responsible for that big oil spill in the Gulf 4 years ago. BP could face fines of up to $18 billion. And fast food workers, thousands of them arrested yesterday in their protest and their demands for a pay raise from $7.25 to $15 an hour, plus the right to join a union. Whoa, a lot on our plate. Friday morning, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. my human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Your TV and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Guilty on 11 out of 13 counts. Virginia is starting to look a lot like Illinois. Hey, hello, everybody. What is these former governors, man? You can't trust them. Guess what? Let's not forget, it's a Friday. Oh, man. Friday, September 5. And I don't care whether it's a short week or not, we still love Fridays. Yes, indeed. We do indeed. We love to see them coming. We make the most of them, and we've got lots and lots to do and cover today, this Friday, September 5, before we get into the weekend. First post-Labor Day weekend. Great to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being part of the program. The Bill Press Show here in our nation's capital, your progressive morning show. For the next 3 hours, we will tell you what's going on, give you our perspective, and open up to hear yours. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Put it on your speed dial so you can just get boom right through here. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. So much you're going to want to comment on this morning, including the late, great Joan Rivers that we'll definitely talk about together here on your local progressive morning show. Thank you, you radio fans. Don't forget, if you're not lucky enough to have a progressive radio station in your community, you're not left out. You can go to the TuneIn app and look for us on the Progressive Voices channel, or download it. It's free. Or also download iHeartRadio, where you'll also find us by hooking up to one of our great local affiliates. And on the video side, we're there with you all across the country on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. How about it? They made it through all 4 days this week. I'm so proud of our team, Peter Rockburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, happy Friday.
I know. 4 days just, I don't know, seems as hard as 5 days.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
Feels like we put in a full week this week.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready for another day tomorrow.
No.
No way, no how. Alicia Cruz, she's there for your calls. Ready to hear from you at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bowling's up early, got the cameras running, the lights on, and we are keeping us looking good. On the video side on Free Speech and Talker TV, we talked with Mary Kay Henry, head of the SEIU, yesterday about the fast food strikes that were just starting out yesterday morning. There were thousands and thousands of workers in dozens of cities across the country that participated. Many of them arrested for civil disobedience, blocking streets or sitting in restaurants as a way of bringing attention to their demand for a raise from $7.25 to $15 an hour and the right to join a union. Here's just one of the workers, fast food worker out in Denver, speaking for many of them.
Once I get my paycheck, almost all of it goes in personal expenses, rent, food. By the next paycheck, 3 days before it, there's no more money for anything.
Yep, sound familiar, doesn't it, right? And in Kansas City, a worker points out that, we are doing what other working men and women have had to do before us, and if they were able to do it and win, so can we.
The jobs like GM and the sanitation workers, those weren't always union jobs and good jobs. Those were seen as bad jobs. But workers fought long ago to make those good jobs.
They did, and today they enjoy union benefits, and fast food workers want the same for themselves, and they deserve it. On this Friday, Susan Page, Washington bureau chief for USA Today, will join us later in this hour. Randi Weingarten, the dynamic president of the American Federation of Teachers, will be here along as well. We'll check in on what it was like in the courtroom yesterday in Richmond when the guilty verdicts were announced against former Governor Bob McDonnell and his wife Maureen. And then we end up, going to the donut factory at the end of the show. Here.
Look, last week we did a beer that was brewed with donuts.
Yeah. I ran into Greg, by the way, on the street yesterday.
Did you really?
Yeah, our friend from Blue Jacket.
Greg Ingert? Yeah.
And so we leave out the beer, we'll just have the donut this morning.
Well, some of us are leaving out the beer. I
didn't realize. You bring a beer in too? Anyhow, donuts end up the show, and yes, your reflections and ours on Joan Rivers. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Alert, alert, alert. Just an update on a story we had yesterday. Bill, they got Whitey. They have captured Whitey. No, Whitey is the albino cobra that was running loose in Thousand Oaks, California. They didn't kill it. They found Whitey in a pile of lumber in someone's backyard.
No.
So they sent out animal control. They got the long handles. Whitey tried to strike the people that tried to rescue. They were trying to get him to safety.
Of course they tried to strike.
Sure.
When somebody's trying to get Whitey.
So you got to watch out. Someone's trying to get Whitey. So they got Whitey. They got him out. They put him in a wooden box. They're taking him to an animal sanctuary. So it's going to be safe where he can't hurt anybody. But they have found him. They've gotten him. So
I'm sort of disappointed. I was cheering for Whitey.
He's going to be fine. You can still cheer for Whitey.
I couldn't believe that they found him in all of Southern California. He had all that territory to roam around. Not a very smart white.
I think this is. I'd call this a happy ending. He's
not for me. He's going to be caged up for the rest of his life,
as opposed to running around in the neighborhood. I mean, I'm glad they
curled up in a wood pile.
I'm glad they didn't kill Whitey.
It's heaven.
But they, he's going to be fine. Everybody's going to be fine.
Maybe he'll escape.
Why would you root for that? NFL football is back. Last night, the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks kicked off the NFL season, but it was not a close game at all. Seattle Seahawks crushing the Packers 36-16.
Whoa.
Seattle Seahawks clearly still in their world championship form. It was not close. They just dominated that whole game. And tell me what you know about Dreadnoughtus.
Oh my God, this is a great story. I'll tell you what I know about it. Weighs 7 times what a T-Rex weighed.
Huge.
Unbelievable.
They're saying this is the biggest dinosaur that ever lived.
Right.
They've named it Dreadnoughtus, which means fearing nothing.
Yeah.
They found parts of the skeleton of Dreadnoughtus in Patagonia in 2005, and they've put enough of the bones together, put enough of the fossils together to say that they estimate...
I thought they found the entire thing.
No, they didn't find the entire thing, but they found enough. Just about. Yeah, they found enough to say that they think Dreadnoughtus had a 29-foot tail, stretched 85 feet long, and weighed 65 tons. A big dinosaur. It was an herbivore.
It was like 3 stories high or something
Huge.
like that.
It looks
for an herbivore
like
too.
Right? It's not one of those with
it does. Right.
Teeth and claws. It's an herbivore. So Dreadnoughtus.
Dreadnoughtus.
It's a badass name, man.
Yeah. I saw the whole story on last night. The scientist from Drexel University was down in Argentina. He discovered it.
Yep.
And then they kept discovering. They realized they had, again, almost the entire skeleton. And they brought it up to Philadelphia. They have, not videotaped, but whatever, every single bone, right? And now the whole thing is going back to Argentina where they found it.
Oh, cool.
But they've got enough of this imagery of every single bone from every angle that they'll be able to study it forever and ever and ever without even having the real bones there.
How cool.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That's interesting.
I think it's God. Imagine we thought the T-Rex was the biggest one. T-Rex. This is
the T-Rex was the most dangerous one, but yeah.
This 7 times the weight. I know. Exciting.
And you think we'd had all this stuff figured out by now, right?
About
It
dinosaurs?
shows there's so much stuff still out
They're
there.
going to have to rewrite all the dinosaur books.
I know.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yes, indeed. Yes, Joan Rivers passed away yesterday. It's so tragic the way it ended. She was, as you know, she was having a minor procedure at a clinic, an outpatient clinic on her vocal cords. She went into cardiac arrest. They rushed her to Mount Sinai Hospital, where she never really got out of intensive care. They put her in a self-induced coma, thinking that maybe that would work, but it didn't. And yesterday, it was announced the sad news. She's no longer with us. Died dead at the age of 81, and coming so soon after the death of Robin Williams. Another great comic figure here, and the amount of attention to Joan Rivers. Just watching last night, I couldn't believe CBS Evening News started. The lead story was Joan Rivers, and then they ended the news with a whole segment about her life and about her humor, with many clips. NBC News, Brian Williams started out with Joan Rivers and stayed with Joan Rivers for almost 10 minutes at the top of NBC News last night. Wow. It is what everyone is talking about, and she was such a figure. I mean, it was lover or hater, right, with Joan Rivers. And she came from that old school of comics, which was a whole male school of comics. I mean, it was the age of Milton Berle and Red Skelton and Sid Caesar and then Johnny Carson and all men. And she broke through as a guest on Johnny Carson because she was so loudmouth and so just outrageous.
Right.
Became his favorite guest. And then when he would go away, and not many people were able to do this because they usually do reruns. No, she hosted the show. And she did such a great job that they gave her her own show, which pissed Johnny Carson off so much that he never talked to her again. I heard her describe that. She called him to tell him about it. He slammed down the phone. She called him back. He slammed down the phone. He never talked to her again for his entire life.
Wow.
The show bombed. Lasted 8 months. Shortly after that, her husband committed suicide. I mean, she had a rough. And then she hibernated for a little bit, and then she reinvented herself, basically as the red carpet reporter.
That's right.
Insulting people coming down the road. I mean, there was nobody or nothing was sacred to her, including herself. She made fun of her body. She made fun of her Botox, all the surgery she had done. She could be downright mean to other people, particularly other women, but she was to everybody.
Absolutely.
She insulted everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And the fact that she remained so comically relevant to so many different generations, right? Like you go back to the Johnny Carson days, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember the red carpet stuff more because, that was sort of my generation. And even today, a couple weeks ago, she was on TV doing stuff.
Right. Yeah. Classic. I remember I saw her last night where she had one clip and she said, look at me. Don't I look great? Dressed by Oscar de la Renta. Yes. Body by Oscar Mayer. She talked about way back when nobody would talk about their plastic surgery. She talked about getting her eyes done.
Of course, my eyes were black and blue. So I was carrying Melissa, and no one did their eyes in those days. So people would say to me, "What happened to you?" And I'd say, "The baby punched me in the eyes."
That's how she covered it up. Baby punched me in the eyes. You talk about the red carpet days, right? Mm-hmm. Here she is talking about, this is a little off color here, I was talking about Rihanna.
I love Rihanna. I think she can do no wrong, but why the green lips? It looks like she just the Grinch. I mean, hey, talk about Christmas early. I have not seen lips that green since Miss Piggy got out of the backseat of Kermit's car. I mean, it's just...
She could get away with that, that kind of stuff. In fact, that's a question. Could she get away with it today? Right. Well, she did, but could anybody else? I don't know. It was a unique brand of humor to her. 866-55-press. Let's talk about it. You can't be alive today without having laughed at or groaned at or winced at some of the things that Joan Rivers said on television.
There's a whole generation, right? Like as she was coming up, of women who broke that mold, of women who were polite and couldn't be dirty, right? And, and you know, like there were certain jokes that you just wouldn't tell in the company of women. Right, but she completely tore that down.
And, you know,
Destroyed.
I'm sure that if we're like Elahi Zadi, our good friend, were here today, and so many others, they would say that she's the one, she was their role model. I mean, Rosie O'Donnell and others that kind of followed her. And
I can't think of another female comic before Joan Rivers. Now, there were like Lucille Ball, who did comedy on TV.
Yeah,
but no, she wasn't a stand-up comic.
She would do stand-up.
Joan Rivers was a stand-up comic and would brutalize people in way harsher ways than a lot of men would.
Now, I just hope, her funeral is Sunday, and I just hope that her family is able to live up to what she wanted at her funeral, as she pointed out in her book, and here's her dramatic reading from her book about what I want in my funeral.
I want paparazzi. I want publicists making a scene. I want it to be Hollywood all the way. Don't give me some rabbi rambling on. I want Meryl Streep crying in 5 different accents.
And she wants to look good, baby.
I want to look gorgeous. Better dead than I do alive. I want to be buried in a Valentino gown. I want Harry Winston to make me a toe tag. I want a wind machine so strong that even in the casket, my hair will be blowing more than Beyonce's on stage.
Don't you love it? I love it. Yeah. Joan Rivers. Let's talk about her. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university. And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, remembering Joan Rivers here on a Friday, September 5. I remember when I was running for office in California, Milton Berle, whom I got to know and became a friend, did a fundraiser for me. Big ballroom, Uncle Milty, and at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. I'm sorry, the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, at any rate. And he started out his routine. And it was, he insulted one group, and then he insulted another group, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be. And then everybody realized he just insulted everybody in the room.
Right.
Yeah. And so everybody felt, okay.
It's tough to get offended.
And that's kind of the style that Joan Rivers was. Morgan, calling from Rolla, Missouri. Hello, Morgan.
Hello, Bill. I just wanted to say, I hate to say anything negative about the recently departed, but in my estimation, Joan Rivers was a bully. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
She loved picking on people, and I always hated when she'd go off on Elizabeth Taylor for getting fat, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think I ever heard her say anything about Frank Sinatra or Johnny Carson, because if she crossed them, they'd squish her like a bug.
Well, that's interesting. The one thing I think you can say, it is true. Look, she was mean and vicious, Morgan. There's no doubt about it. But she was as mean and vicious about herself as she was by anybody else. Yeah. And I think that's what saved her and what's made it different with her. And also, it was across the board.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Famous or not famous, man. There were no sacred cows in her life. Not at all. And that was her style.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing done. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Here it is, 34 minutes after the hour. It is Friday, September 5. Joan Rivers passing away yesterday at the age of 81. Her daughter, Melissa, very, very close to her, who said that what her mom wanted more than anything to do was to make people laugh. And so as we mourn her death, we should also, as she saw, and we are, and people are laughing at many of the great skits and lines that Joan Rivers. We remember of Joan Rivers throughout just about 5 decades of making people laugh, which is amazing. Lots of calls at 866-55-PRESS. Comments, Peter?
We're on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. We sort of put out the question about what do you think about Joan Rivers? Was she a comedic genius, or was she a little too edgy? Sandra Blue says she could be both, plus more. The world is not that black and white, no matter how much you wish it were. So, you know, she could be funny and a little
sometimes you think, ooh, she went over the line with that one, but, you know.
Scott says Rivers set the stage for many women like Roseanne Barr, Elaine Boozler, to stand up in front of a crowd. Great job on that, if nothing else. And we had the caller that mentioned, by the way, about her making fun of Elizabeth Taylor for being fat.
Yeah.
So here are a couple of jokes, by the way, that she put out there on Elizabeth Taylor being fat. And this is just to show that she could be out there, and if it wasn't for you, then it wasn't for you. She said Elizabeth Taylor's so fat she put mayonnaise on her aspirin. She said Elizabeth Taylor pierced her ears and gravy ran out.
I'm sorry, that's kind of humor I like.
Look, I guess that's also kind of the point,
mean.
right? Like, it's obviously mean, and if you're offended by that, then fine, be offended by it. Nobody cares, But if you think it's funny, then you think it's funny. That's kind of what was her point in her comedy.
I'm trying to think of the African-American stand-up comic who did the White House Correspondents' Dinner about
Wanda Sykes.
Now, she is of the style of Joan Rivers.
Absolutely.
And the funniest act I've seen, and I've been to 15 at least, White House Correspondents' Dinner. The funniest.
She crushed.
Totally,
and you're right.
Totally crushed.
Totally in the style of Joan Rivers.
Before we get back to your calls, we have to remember just about a month ago where Joan Rivers came out with her new book, and she went on CNN with Frederica Winfield. And Frederica Winfield says something about, aren't you just this mean bitch, basically? And Joan Rivers walked off the set, if you remember, but not before giving her a good share of her outrage.
I make people laugh for 50 years. I am put on earth to make people laugh. My book is funny. I wear fur that was killed 15 years ago. I work for animal rights. Stop it with, and you do this, and you're mean, and you're that. You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry.
Whoa,
Bye.
man, she let her have it.
Yeah, I forgot that this was all about the fur,
the animal
thing,
furs.
right?
Yeah, right. And then a couple days later, so she goes on David Letterman just to show how quick she is. And so it goes on David Letterman, and Letterman asks her about this.
The woman was interviewing you. What was the woman's name?
I don't know.
Yeah. and you felt that she was being
very judgmental, very nasty, very opinionated. Negative. It was like my wedding night, It was like just...
It's not so negative. It was like my wedding night. I mean, that's... Oh, man. Nobody like her. Michael out in Imperial Beach, California. Hey, Michael.
How you doing, Bill?
All right.
And everybody in the front office and everybody.
Thank you. Right. Good to have you with us. What do you think?
Okay. I hated to hear about Joan Rivers' death, but, I mean, she was a revolutionary woman. No one can.
Absolutely.
Right. But also about, like, Robin Williams. At least Joan Rivers didn't put a belt around her neck and kill herself. So do you think, Bill, that as a comedian who has to make people laugh, do you think that celebrity is a curse to some people?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to tell you, my boy, living in California and, how much time I spent in L.A., and I mentioned, Milton Berle was a good friend of mine, and Ed Asner, and I mean, Rob Lowe. I mean, I got to know a lot of these celebrities out there because they were Sarah Jessica Parker. Her first involvement in politics was volunteering for my campaign for insurance commissioner. Right. And Rob Lowe and Chad Lowe, and I got to know a lot of these celebrities, and it is a curse that being the more famous they got. I remember being out with Ed Asner for breakfast one morning, and he and I were just walking back to his car, and this busload of Japanese tourists, emptied on Hollywood Boulevard. Oh my God! I mean, it's like he needed. They spotted him, and he came running over the cameras and everything. It was like he needed police protection to get away from there. I mean, it can be a curse, but also not just that, dealing with having to deal with the public, but the pressure that it puts on themselves, almost to always be, on stage and just dealing with their own infirmities.
And a lot of comics, you'll hear them talk about this type of stuff, especially, right? Like, a lot of really, really good comedy comes from some dark, dark places.
Well, yeah. In fact, Joan Rivers made that point. I mean, again, her husband, Edgar, who committed suicide shortly after her show bombed. So she loses her show and then loses her husband.
Humor comes from great pain and great anger is really where it comes from. And with my husband, I had both barrels.
Yeah. Humor comes from great pain, right? Great suffering.
Yeah.
David out in Sacramento, California. Hello, David.
Yeah, hey, Bill. How you doing?
Hi. Good. Thank you. Good to have you.
Here's still, Bill. But after we start remembering Joan Rivers, when it's all said and done, get ready for the Michael Jackson, like another lawsuit that's going to happen against that hospital for the surgery that they did. This is going to be like another Michael Jackson lawsuit against them.
You know what? Yeah, I think it's coming. Well, I think it's coming. In fact, there is an investigation into the clinic.
Yeah, and the family has already tipped their hand that they're looking at legal action of how this was botched.
Yeah, it does look like it was. Look, I have zero evidence. So we got to be very careful here, David. But you raise a good point. But it does look like she went in for outpatient, procedure, right, on her vocal cords, and went into cardiac arrest. Look, it can happen.
Sure.
It's happened in dentist chairs before, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm glad they're investigating it.
Yeah.
And I think David is right. I think this is the next act, if you will. It's going to be this lawsuit. Jack is in Bartlett, Illinois. Hello, Jack.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
We're doing great. Good to have you with us.
Good, thank you. Yeah, you know what? I remember, I'm not an old man and I'm not a young man. I'm 39 years old.
Yeah, right in the middle.
I remember being a child, laying on the couch, just pretending to be asleep when Carson was on the air, and I loved the moments when, Joan Rivers would be the host. And I'd pretend like I was asleep at my babysitter's house and watch her.
Yeah.
And just loved everything she did. I mean, she was funny as heck. And then later on in life, to see her with the red carpet comments, she stayed relevant.
Well, she did. And, she had that, unlike so much of the what I love, Jack, is so much of the red carpet thing is just dumb fawning over people.
Course,
you're so beautiful. But she was just.
Nailed them.
Yeah. She was just irreverent, right? And funny. And she was Joan Rivers, so people kind of had to come up to her and talk to her. I mean, nobody else could get away with it but Joan. But she really livened up that red carpet.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, you know what? Also, it's like everyone has an older relative, in your life. That they get to the point where they're older and they just don't care what they say anymore. It's like, what can you do? What can you do to me? I don't care. I'm old now. I don't give a crud. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's an excellent point. Yeah, and we do all have relatives like that, and we love them.
Totally.
Just like we love Joan Rivers.
Right.
Yeah, and we also love Susan Page. She's cut from a different cloth.
A little bit.
But she is a Washington bureau chief for USA Today, our good friend, coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Friday, September 5, 13 minutes before the top of the hour here. On a Friday morning, we've been talking and getting your comments and your reflections on the life and the unique style of humor of Joan Rivers. There's only one woman on the planet I know who's funnier than Joan Rivers. That's Susan Page. She's Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today.
Sadly, that is not at all true, but thank you.
A different style of humor you have than Joan Rivers, huh?
She was funny, and one thing we shouldn't forget is that she was a groundbreaker for women comics.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, she really was. I mean, so many people. She went places where nobody else would dare to go, right? And then others dared to follow.
Roseanne Barr, Sarah Silverman. I mean, lots of younger women followed in her footsteps in a path that she had cut.
I can't think of another female stand-up comic before Joan Rivers. I mean, there were some comedic actresses, but.
And for decades. I mean, it's hard even for male comedians to still be going pretty strong at 81.
Right. Susan, I mentioned earlier, and you and I are the veterans of how many countless White House Correspondents' dinners, but the one that I remember maybe most vividly of all was Wanda Sykes.
She was great.
She was phenomenal, and she's in that Joan Rivers style of comedy.
That's right. She would, like Joan Rivers, she would tell a joke that was just right up against the line of being inappropriate.
Or over the line.
Or a little bit over the line.
I still remember her joking about, Mr. President, we don't need to see your nipples. She said that. At any rate, we'll remember Joan Rivers for a long time. How about Virginia? Starting to look a lot like Illinois, Susan, don't you think?
Wow. And
were you surprised?
Guilty verdict after guilty verdict. And, I didn't have any confidence at all. I didn't have a sense of whether former Governor McDonald was going to get convicted or not. But, boy, that jury didn't take that long and came back 11 guilty verdicts. That's amazing.
It was. And, the whole defense, right, that, this was not quid pro quo. He was just doing for him what he would do for, like, anybody else, right? And then trying to blame it all on his wife. They did not buy it.
So advice to husbands everywhere, stop blaming the wife. No one believes you.
But you know what? It won't stop. Still, I saw this morning somebody was calling him Governor Gifty. That's sort of become his.
I also saw something. Somebody said that Virginia is for grifters.
Ooh, wow! Yeah, how about it? President Obama in Wales with the NATO leaders, hoping to come out of there with some help both in the Ukraine and ISIS. Did he get anything out of it, Susan?
Well, Was yesterday the most amazing news day you've ever seen? Because the events with President Obama ordinarily would have been incredibly major. They are incredibly significant, big foreign policy challenges, and yet we had story after story breaking here. There were 6 stories breaking that could have been easily lead front page stories, from Ukraine and ISIS to the McDonald trial to a bunch of court decisions on gay marriage and on Obamacare and on voting procedures in Ohio.
And on BP, because I'm going to ask you about that too, BP, right? Yeah.
And on this new dinosaur. Giant dinosaur.
Right.
So that they all broke yesterday afternoon. It was really amazing. But back to your point, how do you think President Obama has fared on this overshadowed?
Well, I'm not sure he came away with a lot, to tell the truth. I mean, I'm sure there's vocal support, right? But I didn't, unless I missed it. But you're right. I've been so preoccupied with all this other breaking news. Maybe I lost track of it. I didn't see any. I'm looking at the front page of the paper this morning. There's no big announcement out of NATO, that we're going to send troops to help get rid of ISIS, or we're going to send troops in to protect Ukraine.
And in some ways, I think the president is still dealing with his biggest foe being himself. He's still trying to deal with the repercussions of his comment that he didn't have a strategy yet for dealing with ISIS, and concerns about how he's handled world affairs and the crises that just seem to be getting worse in a variety of places. So maybe he was grateful. Maybe the White House was grateful to be overshadowed yesterday, as the rest of the world had a lot of news.
It could be, but we've said that we can only do so much in Ukraine, right? Europe are the ones on the front line. They're the ones who have to step up to the plate. And the president said, we're not going to go into Syria yet because we have to build a coalition, right, that's going to be with us. I'm not sure he achieved either at this summit.
And, I'm not sure. Of course it's true we can't do everything. And nobody in America wants to be the world's policeman, especially in the aftermath of these 2 long wars. But I think we've also learned that when the United States doesn't step up to the plate, nobody does. And the situations, even in distant places, just get worse.
One place that's being neglected, and I know we don't have much time, but you had a chance to talk to the new American ambassador to the South Sudan.
South Sudan, yes, the nation's newest country, the world's newest country. South Sudan, just 3 years old. This American, helped negotiate the deal that led to it being a country. Really had a world of trouble, and her name just happens to be Susan Page.
Page, right? And like the problems in South Sudan. I mean, it just as a whole story in themselves, right?
That's right. Situation. High hopes for this new nation has disintegrated into the civil war, now floods, the threat of famine, a really dire situation. And when you talk about a story being overshadowed, it is hard for South Sudan to break into the news.
Oh, man. So much to talk about, and we just got started here, Susan, but we're out of time, so we'll let you go into the weekend. Thank you so much for being with us, as always.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, Susan Page, the great Susan Page, USA Today Bureau Chief, Washington Bureau Chief.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At the top of the next hour, we'll be joined by Randi Weingarten, the dynamic president of the American Federation of Teachers, and then we'll jump down to Richmond, Virginia, and get a look inside the courtroom yesterday when the verdicts were read. Peter.
Sunday is Meet the Press, and
Yes,
the first day of Chuck Todd as the new host, and they announced yesterday afternoon that he has a very big first guest for his big rollout. He's going to be talking to President Barack Obama.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Yeah, what a get.
Go right
for
to
the
the
first
top.
day. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Yep. Nowhere to go but down after that, I guess, right?
That's one way to look at it.
In terms of guests. Well, good for Chuck, and may he do well. And he's got a big job bringing Meet the Press back to where it used to be under the great Tim Russell. Randi Weingarten at the top of the next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, what do you say, everybody? Here we go. It's Friday. Hope you're as happy as we are that it's a Friday, September 5, and great to see you on the Bill Press Show. Here we are at our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where it's going to get busy again because the president is on his way back from Wales. It will be soon. And Congress on their way back from their, 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many weeks they've been away. But they'll be back next week. Meanwhile, on this Friday, what a lot of news to cover. Joan Rivers passing away yesterday at the age of 81. On the one hand, everybody mourns her death. On the other hand, everybody is laughing, thinking of all the great lines that she has put off over the last 3 decades at least, if not more, that she's been entertaining us. Nobody's sacred with Joan Rivers. starting with herself. In Virginia, Thomas Jefferson must be rolling in his grave. Virginia's starting to look so much like Illinois. Former Governor Bob McDonnell found guilty on 11 out of 13 counts of corruption. His wife Maureen guilty on 9 out of 13 counts of corruption. They're going to go from the State House to the Big House in a big way. President Obama wrapping up the NATO summit in Cardiff, Wales, with agreements from our European allies on stepping up the pressure on Vladimir Putin in Ukraine and helping the United States to roll back ISIS in Iraq and Syria. BP found guilty of being the number one firm responsible for that big oil spill in the Gulf 4 years ago. BP could face fines of up to $18 billion. And fast food workers, thousands of them arrested yesterday in their protest and their demands for a pay raise from $7.25 to $15 an hour, plus the right to join a union. Whoa, a lot on our plate. Friday morning, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host,
David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Guilty on 11 out of 13 counts of corruption. The jury doesn't buy Bob McDonnell's excuse. That was all his wife's fault. Hey, hello everybody. Friday, September 5. Hello, hello. Great to see you. And welcome to the Bill Press Show here on this first Friday in September with breaking news on every front today. We've got the verdict down in Virginia against Bob McDonnell and his wife. The verdict in Louisiana holding BP primarily responsible for that big oil spill in the Gulf 4 years ago. President Obama in Wales, and the country mourning the death of Joan Rivers yesterday at the age of 81. Lots to cover, and it's back to school, too. We'll start off this hour with Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers. On every front, we are here for you on your local progressive talk radio station, here for you on Free Speech TV, worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Again, welcome to the program, and say hello to the team here, Peter Rogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Friday.
Friday. Yes, indeed. Alicia Cruz on the job, waiting for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. We always ask you to keep her busy here so she doesn't nod off, fall asleep. And Cyprian Bolding, he'd better not fall asleep. On the video cam, keeping us looking good on Free Speech and on TawkrTV. Joan Rivers, dead yesterday at the age of 81. Her service already, Sunday, will be Sunday. And she laid out in her book, which she tells us here in this little dramatic reading, exactly, she didn't want her funeral to be any sad, weepy affair.
I want paparazzi. I want publicists making a scene. I want it to be Hollywood all the way. Don't give me some rabbi rambling on. I want Meryl Streep crying in 5 different accents.
Meryl Streep crying in 5 different accents, man. It's too bad she's not there to kind of host her. Right. her own funeral. Yeah. Let's play that second clip because she also said, she was very outrageous dress sometimes, and that she also wanted to be sure that she looked as good as she could at her funeral.
I want to look gorgeous, better dead than I do alive. I want to be buried in a Valentino gown. I want Harry Winston to make me a toe tag. I want a wind machine so strong that even in the casket, my hair will be blowing more than Beyonce's on stage.
You got to wonder, did she write her own stuff? She had to have some writers.
She definitely had writers.
But she also had such a quick, vicious wit.
Exactly.
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you. Again, we'll talk back to schools with Randi Weingarten, president of the AFT. We'll go down to Richmond and check in on the Bob McDonnell, what it was like in the courtroom yesterday. And we end the show, because this is the weekend after all, end the show with the Doughnut Factory. Yes, a new shop here in Washington, D.C. called District Doughnut. We're going to meet them and sample their products all together. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Movato, a real estate blog, took a look at where the snobbiest city in America is. Now, how do they get this answer? First of all, they took a look at median home price, median household income, percentage of population with a college degree, private schools per capita, performing arts per capita, art galleries, and fast food restaurants. In other words, the fewer fast food restaurants, the better. So who is the snobbiest city in America?
West Palm Beach, Florida.
San Francisco, California is number 1, the snobbiest city in America. Number 2, Washington, D.C., right here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can sort of see that coming.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So at least we're not number 1, we're number 2. Ralph Nader is tired of people calling him a spoiler. He was giving an interview talking about the 2000 presidential election, and someone said, hey, you sort of spoiled this for everybody, and he got very angry. He pointed the finger at the interviewer and said, blame the Electoral College and blame Florida, but don't blame me. Get over it. So he's clearly, 14 years later, he's still a little sore about the whole thing.
Guess what? He is a spoiler, and Al Gore was elected president of the United States, and there's no doubt he would have been president of the United States if it weren't for Ralph Nader. So I'd say to Ralph, you get over it.
You get over it, yeah, exactly. And for years, Barbie has been the biggest toy in the world. The largest toy maker made the most money, but not anymore. This year it is different. Any guesses what replaced Barbie as the highest selling toy in the world?
No idea.
What's
G.I. Joe
old is new again. Lego.
Oh,
Lego. People are choosing bricks
Okay.
over Barbie. Saw an 11% jump in sales the first half of this year. There was the Lego movie, which we remember was a big money maker, and so people are sort of paying attention. More of today's youths are buying
But
Legos.
the biggest theme park, I think, in Southern California right now is Legoland.
Legoland.
Yeah.
I've been to the one in Florida.
Oh, I
and
didn't
it's
know they had
awesome.
one in Florida.
It's
Really?
awesome.
Yeah. But what do you do? Do you do they give you building blocks and you start building your own little
They
castle?
do that, but then they also have like Lego themed roller coasters and rides. But then they have things you can play with. They have these giant sculptures made out of Lego. It's a cool little park.
Yeah, there's one north of San Diego, which I can't. Next time I'm in San Diego, I'm going there.
Take your grandkids; they'll love it.
No, I keep hearing about it.
It's very cool.
Legoland. Okay. Yes, indeed. News on, as I say, breaking news on many fronts today. We're going to start talking education here, but just to bring you up to date, among the other breaking news stories, BP. BP has said all along, yeah, we know that was our platform that blew up down there in the Gulf, but Halliburton and the other companies we were working with, they bear part of the responsibility. Yesterday, a federal judge said, no way, no how, BP, it was all yours, baby, and you hold primary responsibility. And the judge said that what that did was open the door for BP to face fines up to $18 billion for that spill in the Gulf, which is huge, of course. But I welcome relief certainly to the people in the Gulf states who will have that money to try to still rebuild some of the environmental damage from the Gulf. The news out of Wales, the president wrapping up the NATO summit, getting some support, maybe not as much as he hoped, from European nations to put more pressure and more sanctions on Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, and to help build an international coalition to achieve what the president has declared as his mission to demean and destroy ISIS, both in Iraq and in Syria. Meanwhile, here on the home front is, as we know, impeded with two young kids, my grandkids. It is back to school week. Yeah. What a great time to check in with a very good friend of ours, we're very grateful for their sponsorship of the Bill Press Show. The American Federation of Teachers and their dynamic president, Randi Weingarten, joining us on the news line this morning. Hi, Randi. How are you?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
We are great. Very excited with the back to school. You know, the president gives a State of the Union address every year. What do you say? How would you rate the state of America's public schools as we start this new school year?
Well, there's a new Gallup poll that I think was, a perfect indication of the state of our schools. The closer you are to schools, the more you have kids in schools or you're engaged with kids, the more you love and need and want public schools to work and function and the more you advocate for great neighborhood public schools that are collaborative, welcoming, and safe. The farther away you are, the more you're, proposing reforms that strip rights from teachers, that siphon off money from schools, that, that laud austerity, laud privatization, and demean and marginalize, teachers and their unions. And so you see this big disconnect right now with the people who are close to schools, who know what schools mean to their kids and to their communities, and then the powers that be, even the Democratic elites, the Republican, the Tea Party, the Koch brothers, the Walton Foundation, the Jeb Bushes of the world, that just seem to want to destabilize schools and public education and fund vouchers and alternatives instead, even though, writ large, they've proven that they haven't worked. Even charters have proven, some charters work, some charters don't. And so it's really, so you're seeing this big debate in the public space, in the newspapers or on TV, or where the former journalist Campbell Brown can get onto every TV station. But in schools itself, what you're seeing is, how do we make every school a place where parents want to send their kids and educators want to work and kids are engaged? How do we make schools places where kids build relationships, learn critical thinking, learn how to be resilient, and have a joy of learning? And that's the great divide right now. And Dana Goldstein just wrote a book that basically, nailed this and penned this about the teacher wars and teachers being the most embattled profession, not just today, but even 100 years ago.
Wow. What's the name of the book?
The name of the book is The Teacher Wars by Dana Goldstein.
Dana Goldstein, Teacher Wars. Yeah.
And what she did was she basically said, this is not new. That every time one wants to actually change the dynamic in education, they immediately say, there is a crisis of tremendous proportions, and therefore we have to destabilize and change. And the change that she's talking about, about 150 years ago, was a male profession, dominated profession. And but America understood that we had to help educate all kids, but wanted to do it on the cheap. So there was this very intentional change to change it to a female profession because you could pay females less than now.
Wow.
It's fascinating book.
We'll put a link up to that book on our website. Now I have to ask you, front page of the New York Times this morning, 51,000 people respond to Mayor de Blasio's call for pre-K in New York. He promised he was going to do this. This is so important, isn't it, pre-K?
It is huge. And I personally was one of those skeptics initially about whether or not the mayor, when the mayor ran in the primary, I was one of those skeptics about, could the mayor actually do this? And let's look at this. Eva Moskowitz and her, 20 or so charter schools, she has bitten at him. She has attacked this guy the entire time that he has been there and not given him a chance to do the things that he wants to do and needs to do in terms of public education. And look what he has done. Even with trying to run the city, doing all sorts of other things, he said, I want to make pre-K work the first year for as many kids as I can do. 51,000 kids. We've been at pre-K in New York for years. Give this guy a huge amount of credit for actually moving an agenda that he said was his number one priority, and an agenda that really helps feed opportunity for children. So proud of him.
I agree. I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I just know from my kids, right, and Peter, from your kids, how important pre-K is, and it's expensive for too many families, right? I mean, it should be universal for every kid in America. That should be our goal. I hope we'll get there someday. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you look at it. And I give a lot of people a lot of credit up in New York City right now, because it's like using all sorts of different nooks and crannies, from a Catholic church, I think in Staten Island, to a charter school where we frankly represent the teachers in a charter school, Amber Charter School up in Harlem. It's just they figured out how to find ways to create spaces for pre-K, and when some of them were not ready for prime time, he got up last week and said, these things are not going to open yet because safety of kids are our first responsibility. Yeah. So, when people, and then at the same time, you still have Eva Moskowitz attacking him, and, running for mayor in 3 years from now, as opposed to actually look at what he's done in terms of moving that public system to ensure that there's pre-K.
Yep, good for him and good for New York. And good for you, Randi Weingarten. Always good to have you with us. Thanks for checking in this morning.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
so
Talk
much.
to you again soon.
Bye.
See you back in the studio. Randi Weingarten, President of the American Federation of Teachers. And now, what it was like in the courtroom yesterday in Richmond, Virginia.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, 26 minutes after the hour. In the next half hour, Jessica Taylor will be here. Talk all things politics from the Hill newspaper. And it was a very dramatic moment in the Richmond courtroom yesterday. The word went out that the jury had reached a verdict. Both teams in the corruption trial for former Governor Bob McDonnell and his wife Maureen, of course. Both teams pressed into the courtroom along with reporters. Ned Oliver, reporter for Style Weekly, gave the kind of the blow-by-blow. Let me just read from his account. So the jury comes in. They say, the judge says, did you reach a verdict? Yes, we did. Let's see it. He hands it over. A judge looks at it, hands it to the clerk, and then he says, okay, you can read the jury's verdict. Count one, she says. Bob McDonnell, guilty. Maureen McDonnell, guilty. 6 reporters jump up and tear out of the room to report the news. It goes on like that. By count 3, Bob McDonnell is visibly crying. Weeping erupts from the McDonnell family, seated in the first 2 rows of the courtroom. By count 8, Bob McDonnell is holding his head in his hands in the gallery. The priest that he's been living with is embracing a family member who appears to have lost control. Count 11, Bob McDonnell, guilty. God, cries out a family member. He was, in the end, found guilty on 11 out of 13 counts. His wife found guilty on 9 out of 13 counts. The judge has set the sentencing hearing for January 6th. Bob McDonnell's defense attorney says he will appeal, but I think that's more a sign of hope, than reality. And when Bob McDonnell, he left the courtroom, he looks, continuing from Ned Oliver's account, he looks stunned. He says only, quote, all I can say is my trust remains in the Lord. Bob McDonnell. Guilty.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour on a Friday, September 5. The Bill Press Show brought to you today in part by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT. We just heard from their president, Randi Weingarten, at the top of the hour, making a difference in America's classrooms every day. You bet. And find out more about their good work and how you can help. Go to their website at aft.org. Congress is coming back beginning of the week, taking a little time out from their midterm elections to see if there's anything maybe they can accomplish in the next couple of weeks before they then take off again to campaign again. Jessica Taylor covers politics in general for The Hill, their campaign editor. And she joins us in studio this morning. Hi, Jessica. Nice to see you
Bill.
again.
Thanks for having me.
Everything good at The Hill?
It's wonderful. We are ready and excited for the midterm elections that are just over 60 days away now. So,
yeah. And excited to see
Super Bowl for you all.
It's pretty much, with very little sleep.
And excited to see Congress come back in town next week? I mean, who is? Who is, really? Not members of Congress aren't happy to come back.
No, I mean, what John Boehner told his conference this week, that he expect a busy but brief session. I think that Republicans, the mantra for them is going to be do no harm, essentially. They want to, come back. They don't want, I think, the end of September, obviously last September and October was not good for Republicans with the government shutdown. They don't want this to happen again. They need to pass a stopgap funding measure before September September 30th. They have some more conservative members of their caucus talking up, a shutdown or impeachment. That is not what they want. They want to get back. They want to keep their heads down. And, they want to be able to, not do anything that's going to damage them going into the midterms.
So at this time, how long are they scheduled to be here before they break again?
The House is in for about 15 working days. So I think, they're going to take a break mid-September for Jewish holidays. And, I think we could see them for about 2 or 3 weeks. It kind of depends,
So before the end of September, they'll be out of town again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
They want to get back to their districts. They want to get back to their states and start campaigning. I mean, this is not, they clearly have some very big issues to deal with when they come back. Obviously, like if Democrats even in President Obama's own party are saying, we need to if there's going to be an authorization for military and ISIS. Exactly.
So some of the things that could be on the agenda, right?
Right.
ISIS would be one.
Absolutely. I think this is what, we're going to be hearing about, point number one coming back is you're hearing, Bill Nelson, a Democrat of Florida, has said he's going to introduce a resolution giving authorization for the use of force. I think you're going to start seeing even more members within his own party call for some type of action, especially in Syria, to deal with ISIS. So I think that's going to be, front and center. And then I think the other question remains, does President Obama use some sort of executive action to bypass Congress to deal with the immigration crisis?
Well, okay, I was going to say that to me would be number 2 on the list, would be, again, the possibility of some action on immigration.
Right. But I think it really sounds like what is going to happen now is that, they are sort of going to punt this until after the elections. These vulnerable Democrats in red states, they don't want this happening. You have them coming out against it. And I think Democrats really worry that if he did something right now, that just makes it an even hotter midterm issue especially in these states where President Obama is unpopular.
This struck me as, I was surprised to see this, and actually it's a story from Politico. Hate to mention the opposition, but I'm sure you've been on it too, is that, the Democrats, there's some Democrats in the Senate who want a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. Bernie Sanders has been on that, and I forget some of the other senators have been on it. But now some Republicans are saying maybe we ought to have this debate when they come back, just to air the issues. And Republicans, I don't think, are going to support it.
No.
But who's on which side, and we'll be able to know.
For Democrats, this is a fundraising issue. This is an issue that certainly excites their base. We've seen, if you're on any of the Democratic mailing lists, I mean, just the inundation of, sometimes you think the world is ending with some of these fundraising emails that you get. But, anything that they can do to gin up their base with the Koch brothers, with this big money and stuff too, it's a big money maker for Democrats. And I think Republicans certainly can point to that too. So, for both sides, I think it's a fundraising boon for them.
That's why they're reducing.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's going to get done.
So maybe ISIS, maybe immigration. As you pointed out, they have to do a stopgap measure, funding measure, just to keep the government up and running.
Right. It seems like the most likeliest measure now is that we would see something very short, again, punting this to sort of after the midterms, keeping sort of the spending cuts with where they are now. That's what Boehner and GOP leaders want. Again, they do not want any talk of the shutdown. That would just be poisonous to Republican chances. They know it, and they're, I think, starting to really stress to their members that, if you do this, if you keep pressing this message, like Democrats are fundraising off of this is exactly what Democrats want to campaign on. So, Democrats are privately rooting for, I think, Republicans to at least keep talking about the shutdown.
Anything that we're likely to see on, I'm just trying to think of any other front. Energy, no. Climate change, no.
I think that what you will see, I think, in the Senate is Harry Reid has indicated he is going to bring up a lot of these base issues. I think you're going to see him talking about the minimum wage increase. You could see him talking about climate change. So, for the House, I think it's sort of keep our head down. We want to do our job. We don't want to, make any big headlines. But for Harry Reid and Democrats in the Senate, as they go into November trying to cling to their 6-seat majority, they want to, rile up the base. They want to talk about minimum wage issues and things that could maybe excite middle-class voters and voters that may not show up to the polls in November to encourage them to get out.
In the House, any more votes to repeal Obamacare?
It doesn't sound like we're going to have any, but, I think, never say never. Those seem to kind of creep up when you're least expecting them.
I think the smarter heads in the House, even among Republicans, have concluded that that's...
Yeah, it has been a while since we've had one.
Yeah. They've played that card.
Yeah.
There is, on the political front... President Obama got some bad news this week. The Gallup poll shows that his approval rating is now at 38%. It was only that low one other time in his presidency, October 2011. And we all know polls go up and down, right? And this time in a second term, no president really fares that well. But this is pretty...
Those are not numbers that the White House and Democrats want to be seeing when, again, they're 61 days out from a midterm election. Those are not the kind of numbers that bode well for the president's party. We have always seen historically that the president's party will lose seats, and it's just a question of how many really it seems like. It seems like there's a good chance they're going to lose seats in the House, but, again, they need to not lose more than 6 in the Senate. And, if his numbers are that bad nationally, think about where they are in North Carolina, in Arkansas, in Louisiana, these states
Kentucky.
Right, exactly. So, that is exactly not the type of number that they want to see.
The question is, does, we could, either one of us could do this online historically, it would take us some time. But do the president's approval numbers really count in the midterm elections? Are people going to decide to vote for David Pryor or for Mark Begish, or for Michelle Nunn based on President Obama's approval rating or on who they think is going to do a better job in the Senate for their state?
Well, Democrats very much want them to make that distinction, but I think to vote for the person.
For the person,
exactly.
Not for Obama.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why you're seeing, like Michelle Nunn, like Allison Lendergan Grimes in Kentucky, distance themselves from the president. Actually, it was a really funny clip. If you saw The Daily Show last night, he actually ran several ads from Natalie Tennant in West Virginia and Mark Pryor and things too, just completely distancing themselves from the president. He's like, clearly these Republicans, and he's like, oh no, wait, actually those are Democrats. They're clearly distancing themselves from the president and trying any way that they can, which is exactly what they have to do. Places like West Virginia where Obama's numbers have always been abysmal. But what I think is the worry for Democrats is in 2012, if people wanted to vote against the president, they had that option. I think that's why you saw in Montana, John Tester could get elected and President Obama lost there. Why Heidi Heitkamp could get elected in North Dakota and as President Obama lost the state. If you want to voice your dissatisfaction with the president this midterm election, really the only option you have is to vote against his party. And that's, why I think we saw such a big wave in 2010 again with against President Obama. The Republicans successfully made that case that, if you're upset with the White House, if you're upset with his party, you need to vote against them. And so that's the case you're going to be seeing Republicans continue to make. That's why.
So that low approval rating could have an impact.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Does that mean that we're going to see the president out there campaigning for a lot of Democratic candidates?
He is not going to be. If you see, I think that he
does a lot of fundraisers.
He absolutely does a lot of fundraisers. He's sort of referred to as a fundraiser in chief. They might use him sort of strategically in a few states. You saw him go to Wisconsin. He could help them there. He was there on Labor Day. Michigan, possibly. Some places where his numbers have not fallen as far. But, even when he goes to a state for a non-political reason, a couple of weeks ago when he went down to Charlotte to speak at the VFW conference, the big question was, is he going to appear with him, and they have this photo of her with him. I mean, immediately, that photo is going to be used in attack ads, even just the fact that, she is the home state senator meeting him there at the airport. Richard Burr, the state's other Republican senator, was even there next to her, but, they're going to zero in on that photo of the two of them. And, it's, you don't want him to go to Arkansas. Absolutely not. The interesting thing is, I think that's why you're going to start seeing, whereas President Obama's approval ratings are there, people like the Clintons are still, beloved in places. Like, obviously, Arkansas, they want him back there as much as they can. He's actually going to be heading down to North Carolina for Kay Hagan. You're going to see him out there. They really want to, deploy.
And he's been in Kentucky. Bill Clinton's been in Kentucky at least a couple of times.
Oh, yeah. He's already been there at least twice.
Yeah.
He's a longtime friend with the Lundgren family there and stuff too. So, she's even said, like, I am a Clinton Democrat. She's certainly distancing herself from the president. So, you'll see the Clintons out there. Interestingly enough, when we had a story on this a couple of weeks ago, whereas they don't want Barack Obama there, a lot of these people are open to having Michelle Obama. Her numbers are great in some of these states, especially based on our work with military families. They actually want her out on the campaign trail more. They would love to see her. National Democrats would, places like Louisiana and North Carolina that, where her husband may be sort of toxic, she isn't necessarily.
It's interesting. You haven't heard her name brought up much.
No.
In terms of getting
It'd
out
be
there.
interesting to see if she's out there campaigning.
She's really kind of hesitant. She doesn't really, I don't think she relishes it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. She'd much rather, work on her nutrition plans and things like that too, but they would still love to have her out there more. So.
I was going to say, the problem is you invite her in, then you have to become a vegan.
Yeah, well.
There are a whole lot of healthy meals in Kentucky. She's going to go down there and campaign for her.
I'm from the South. There is nothing healthy down there.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, if we have a vegetable, we fry it, No.
That's right.
All right. And there is a Senate race in Kansas that you will not believe. We have never seen anything like this, and Jessica Taylor will tell us all about it when we come back from The Hill, thehill.com. Your questions, your comments. What do you think? President's approval rating mean anything in these races? 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 10 minutes before the top of the hour. In the next hour, donuts for the summer. District Doughnut coming in, the new shop in town. The owner's going to tell us all about it and bring us a good sampling of his offerings. We're the ultimate taste test here for the donuts.
Yeah.
And we'll start off also talking politics with Nahal Toosi, from she's been covering the McDonald trial down in Richmond, Virginia, for Politico. Jessica Taylor's here in studio at this time from The Hill, campaign editor for The Hill, and this political race in Kansas. So Pat Roberts is the incumbent Republican.
Right.
Not in great shape, right?
He had a primary challenge. He, made a lot of mistakes. He really didn't seem like he learned from, the past incumbents that had really sort of, messed this up. Dick Lugar and things too about going back to your state.
And he's been there a long time. He probably should not have run again, like Thad Cochran. But at any rate, he did.
Yeah, he talked about he lives in Alexandria, has a house there. His wife is a realtor there. In fact, too, he said now he goes back to Kansas. He rents a recliner from someone. He was talking at a radio show, and he said, I come back to Kansas whenever I have a race. Whenever I can. He stops himself. And if I can actually plug our site too, we actually have a list up today of the top 8 gaffes so far of the presidential year,
a little earlier.
That one is definitely on there. Of his, I go home whenever I get an opponent. Not what you want to be saying when your opponents are trying to paint
Check
you.
it out on thehill.com. You hear me talk about The Hill a lot because I write a column for The Hill on Tuesday. But anyhow, that's a good piece of the 8 top gaffes. So Robert's in trouble, and then you've got a Democrat and an incumbent running against him.
Right. So Roberts won his primary just really much closer than we thought he was going to earlier this year in August. He squeaked by just a couple of points. He had, Senate Conservatives Fund, Tea Party groups coming in against him. But the guy that ran against him, Milton Wolf, really had a lot of flaws. So I think, Roberts, again, with national help, the National Republican Senatorial Committee Chairman Jerry Moran is his colleague from Kansas. They had to end up sending money to him, staff and everything to kind of help him in the closing days. So you think in a state like Kansas, you win your Republican primary, you're set. Not so. You look at this really took he took a beating on his approval numbers, on still his likability in the state. And, even after he's faced all of this criticism that he doesn't go back to the state enough, his campaign manager says, well, he's going to go home and rest for a couple of days after this. And by home, he meant
Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, it doesn't, when you're trying to say I'm really spending time in Kansas, it doesn't really reinforce that fact. Oops. So, he had a Democrat running against him, Chad Taylor, who had a lot of problems. Really, he had sexual harassment suits against him, a lot of problems. But the one to watch that was surging in the polls is this independent named Greg Orman. He has sort of an interesting background, a business consultant, but he had given from everyone from Al Franken to the National Republican Congressional Committee. So he says he's frustrated with both parties. He he wants to.
I got to jump in. We're just about out of time. So the Democrat is trying to get off the ballot to support the independent.
Right. So yesterday or Wednesday was the deadline to withdraw from the race. If he wanted to withdraw, he had to notify the Secretary of State. So he was really pressured by, even Claire McCaskill called him up, really wanting to get him off the ballot. So he submits the letter that he needs to, and then Republicans challenge it, saying you didn't give us a reason why you couldn't serve. So you have Democrats being upset that the Democrat is not being taken off the ballot, and Republicans being upset that the Democrat they want him to stay on the ballot. It's just bizarre.
And at this point, we still don't know whether he'll be on the ballot or not. With that, we got to leave it there. Stay tuned, Jessica Taylor. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming in.
All right, thanks.
Who says politics isn't fun?
It's a hoot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, what do you say on this Friday? 2 hours down, 1 more hour to go before we let you go into the weekend. We got a big hour coming up. We're going to talk politics with Nahal Toosi from Politico, deputy political editor for Politico. And then, we love to do food and booze on a Friday morning. We're into donuts, a new shop called District Donuts, and the owner will be here in studio with us to regale us with some of the latest in the donut world. So you won't want to miss it. Jump, if you're on free speech, you're going to lose you, so jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Hour number 3 coming up on TawkrTV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter.
I think I'd go looking for aliens.
If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime. I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live.
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Nahal Toosi, political editor for Politico, in studio with us at the top of the next hour. And then again, we're going to jump into donuts. Greg Menna, the founder and owner of District Doughnut, in studio with us on the president's schedule. He wraps up things at NATO today, has a news conference before he heads off and heading back here to Washington. Arriving back at the White House at 9 o'clock tonight. And I'll bet you there's some golf on his schedule for tomorrow. You bet.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so Let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags and we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Guilty. The jury didn't buy Bob McDonnell's defense. Found guilty on 11 out of 13 counts of corruption, and his wife Maureen on 9 counts. They will find out how much time they're going to spend in prison on January 6th unless their appeal is successful. I wouldn't bet on it. Hey, hello everybody. Great to see you on a Friday, September 5. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our studio right here in the heart of the action on Capitol Hill, and booming out to you on your local progressive talk radio station, nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. How exciting. We're right there in Wales, right alongside of Barack Obama. We are everywhere on the planet. On TawkrTV, TAWKRTV, and you get there by going to YouTube, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Welcome to the program this morning. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget, you can join us at any time, one or two or three ways. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Our team here are winding up the week, even though it's been a short week. It's been a hard week this week. Just a lot of stuff to
I
talk
feel like
about.
I worked the full week.
Do you really?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Take that away from me.
Peter Ogburn, Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Ali Screws on the phones, and 866-55-PRESS. Don't forget that number. And Cyprian Bolding on the video cam, having us look good on the worldwide video stream. And we welcome to the program a neighbor here from the Hill, good friend of the program. Nahal Toosi is the deputy political editor for Politico. Hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
Welcome in. I know you and I, the first chance to talk, you were here with Peter when I was out of town.
And remarkably didn't burn the studio down when I was in your chair.
And she didn't. She didn't either.
And she didn't either. Yeah. So we had her back.
It was interesting how watching the network news last night that every channel started with the top story of the day, which was not NATO in Wales, not the BP oil spill verdict, not the McDonnell verdict, but the death of Joan Rivers at the age of 81. She really did have that kind of an impact.
He did. She did. I mean, I can't. It's hard to imagine, her not there anymore. She's always been there.
Yeah, and been such a role model, such a pioneer in the field of stand-up comedy.
And we said that even if you weren't a fan of her style of comedy, she was a presence, right? Like, there's no way you didn't know who Joan Rivers was.
Right. And she had her critics, and right up to the end, she fought back. Just about a month ago, and we talked about this, she appeared on CNN. Her latest book came out. She said some nasty things in there, and she was known for once in a while wearing a fur, even though it might have been an old piece of fur. So she goes on CNN with Frederica Winfield, who suggests that maybe Joan Rivers deserves some criticism for wearing fur. Joan Rivers has had it, and she slams back.
I make people laugh for 50 years. I am put on earth to make people laugh. My book is funny. I wear fur that was killed 15 years ago. I work for animal rights. Stop it with, and you do this, and you're mean, and you're that. You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry.
boom, and she's out of there. She walked off the set. Yeah. And what I love, then a couple of days later, she appears on David Letterman, and David Letterman asks her, what about this woman? And Joan Rivers, she's as sharp as ever.
The woman was interviewing you. What was the woman's name?
I don't know.
Yeah. and you felt that she was being...
very judgmental, very nasty,
Negative.
very opinionated. Negative. It was like my wedding night, you know? It was like just...
Very nasty, very negative. It was like my wedding. I just love that. But you know what she said? I was put on earth to make people laugh.
Sure.
Kind of sums it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she was all about. Anyhow, politics of the day with Nahal Toosi here for the first half hour. And then, yes, we've all been looking forward to this all day long, all week long. Donuts coming up at the half. Yes, the new District Donut Shop. We'll find out how good they really are. But first,
this
is the
full court
press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. You know, Cosmo magazine, the women's magazine, is known for a lot of sort of fluffier topics. I wouldn't say they have a lot of hard-hitting news in there. But that is going to change. They said that they are getting into the world of politics.
Oh, forget it.
Cosmo votes. Well, I actually think this is kind of cool. What they're going to do is they're taking a look. They're taking. Well, listen to the story first. I haven't even said what the story is. Here's what they're going to do.
You will never take Cosmo seriously about politics.
Well,
politics, you go to Politico, right? Or you go to The Hill, or you go to, I don't know, Huffington Post. You don't go to Cosmo.
I think you should give him a chance. I think you should
listen to the damn story first. Hang on. Here's the deal. What they're doing is they're taking a look at midterm.
My show.
I understand. But I report, then you decide.
All right.
So here's what they're doing. They're taking a look at the midterm elections. They're taking a look at politicians around the country and the races, and they're saying who best represents women. They're taking a look at women's issues, where the candidates stand on women's issues, and then they're going to make endorsements. They're going to endorse candidates who take better care of women, so the female readership of Cosmo can say, here's where this candidate stands on abortion or gender equality, pay equality, and things like that. And Cosmo's going to weigh in on it. And so they're getting into the world of politics.
Cosmo trying to be Emily's list.
Not going to say anything else, I guess.
Hey, I think the Democrats should be very happy about
I
it.
agree. Look, Cosmo is going to shine on.
If you're seriously interested in politics, you're not going to be going to Cosmo for your information or advice.
No.
I'd say go to Emily's list.
Yep.
But if you're seriously interested in politics, that's probably not the demographic they're trying to reach. I mean, like they're gonna, be talking to a lot of women who maybe weren't that interested, and as a result, could be interested. And like I said, if you're the Democrats and you already have an advantage with women in general, then you can look at this and say, hey, maybe we can get some more persuadables here.
Well, you could go to Ranger Rick and find out who's better for little children too. Yeah, right.
All right. Okay. Oh, sorry. So next week we know that Apple has a big.
Did we hit the sound?
You can hit the sound.
All right, now we can move on.
Next week we know Apple has a big announcement.
We're going to a new topic here.
Apple has a big announcement planned.
I still win that argument. Go ahead.
Apple has a big announcement planned next week.
Yes,
I know. We knew that we have a good idea that they're going to be releasing a new iPhone. New York Times has confirmed what they're going to announce. It will be 2 new iPhones. One of them will be a 4.7-inch screen, and the other will be a 5.5-inch screen. The one that you're currently holding in your hand, Bill, is a 4-inch screen. So no matter what, they're going to be bigger phones.
How big are they going to be?
That's a 4-inch. You can either get a 4.7-inch or a 5.5-inch. So bigger.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that big.
Can't we just jump ahead to the thing in the movies where the phone is just embedded in your hand?
Right. Well, we're getting closer because the other thing that New York Times confirmed is that they will announce the wearable technology iWatch. So it's going to be a watch that you're going to be able to use as a phone, as a watch. You'll be able to store your music in it. It's got a flexible display panel that they say is composed of sapphire, a type of tougher glass, because that's always been the issue with phones is that they break too easily. They say the iWatch will not have that problem.
I'm intrigued, but I really like this size. It's so convenient.
If you're going to get a new iPhone, you're going to get a bigger iPhone. You don't have the option. You won't have the option.
But the Samsungs are bigger. Like that one Igor comes in with is bigger. You have an iPhone too, right?
It's the same one you got though.
Same.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, look, phones are getting
really
bigger.
like the bigger one.
Somewhere we're going to meet in the middle between iPad and iPhone.
But
size.
I want to go back to the way cell phones used to be.
With the purse,
like the size of a milk carton.
Yeah.
No. And yesterday, ABC announced the latest cast of Dancing with the Stars, season 19.
No.
By the way.
Really?
Just a couple of people.
How old am I?
Right, I know.
I don't understand.
19 seasons of Dancing with the Stars? So, just a couple of people that you might recognize. Alfonso Ribeiro, who was was Carlton on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Duck Dynasty star Sadie Robertson, not one of the crazy guys who are out there making a lot of...
I was going to say, they trip over their beard.
Yeah, exactly. Actress Leah Thompson is going to be on there. Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. And I know who we're already going to be rooting for. Talk show host Tavis Smiley is going to be competing. He's going to be on Dancing with the Stars.
Tavis.
Yeah.
Tavis
is doing it.
Tavis should have asked my advice.
He should have asked Tucker's advice.
Well, he should have. But I mean, I mentored Tavis. He'll tell you that when he was a young man starting out on radio in Los Angeles, and
I missed this lesson from you.
I wish he had called me. I would have told him, "Don't do that, Tavis." He's too serious a journalist to do that. But at any rate, 19 years. That goofy program's still going.
19 seasons. They do this thing where they split up the years and the seasons. So, but come on, 19.
I never thought it would make it. I honestly never thought it would make it.
either. People's tastes nowadays.
Right.
I mean,
the other thing is I don't recognize half the names on that list. I didn't read a bunch of them. I don't even know.
They brought in the definition of star quite a bit.
Yeah, it's true.
So, where do we go from there? I'll tell you. Well, speaking of celebrities, we have a celebrity, former governor and his wife. You've been spending a lot of time on this story at Politico. I didn't know whether to be surprised or not that he was found guilty. At first, I was sure he was going to walk. Bob McDonnell, found guilty on 11 charges,
right.
His wife on 9 out of 13 charges. Now, they say they're going to appeal. Any chance? I mean, how do you read it?
It is possible that they might be able to convince an appeals court that during the process of the case, the judge made the definition of the concept of official acts a little too broad.
That's what killed it for, I think, McDonnell, the judge's instructions.
Right. Because, I mean, when you think about it, what is an official act? Some people would argue, well, it's only what's enumerated in a statute, like, the capacity or ability to appoint someone to a board, for instance. But, is the fact that you helped a guy set up a meeting with somebody else, does that really count as an official act?
The fact that you hold a reception for somebody,
right? Is that an official act?
So McDonnell said these are not official acts, and I would have done it for anybody.
Right.
Well, he just happened to do it for a guy who gave him $165,000 in gifts, plus vacations, and on top of that, paid for his daughter's wedding. Boom, boom, boom.
Right. I mean, it was not.
This was a quid pro quo.
It's not an ordinary friendship. I mean, I don't have a lot of friends who would do that sort of thing. But then I'm poor, So, but at the same time, it was really interesting because the jury just didn't buy his argument this first time around, and it's going to be hard to tell what exactly is going to happen on the ground.
So half his defense was they were not official acts, and the other half was it was her fault, not mine, right?
Right.
And we weren't speaking, so I didn't even know what was going on.
Right. That just
classic. Defense of the husband, but it didn't work. Jury didn't buy it.
It was pretty extraordinary what Maureen McDonnell was subjected to in the process, and she never testified. And
no, but I mean, she didn't care because if he got off, she got off, right? I mean, so
that was the theory. I mean, the idea was it was not going to be a situation where they would convict one and not the other.
Yeah.
But I just think you got to remember they had a chance at a plea.
Yes. Yes.
That is amazing to me.
Yeah.
And they should have taken it.
Yeah.
They should have taken it. Here's you got to go back to, this is a guy that was being touted 2 years ago as a vice presidential running mate for Mitt Romney. And beyond that, they were saying he's the guy to watch for 2016.
Right.
I mean, look where you say he won't be able to vote. He'll be in prison in 2016.
Yeah.
But What was he thinking? He's not a dumb man, and here he is as governor, and he has a guy pay for his daughter's wedding. Take his wife on a shopping trip to New York, fly over in a private jet, and then anything she wants to spend on Madison Avenue, and he doesn't at any moment think maybe this doesn't look so good.
There is the question of, did he just lose perspective as he rose higher and higher in politics, was surrounded by people with wealth and connections. It's just one of those very odd things when you look at it. And I'm not saying that means that there's grounds to convict him or anything, because you made bad judgment or bad decision. But you do kind of wonder at a certain point, does this not occur to you that maybe this just isn't such a good idea just in general? It's very odd. It's very odd. And the other thing is he seemed to kind of argue that he just didn't know what his wife was doing, and he just was neglectful, and it's like, this is a lot of money, and yet you just kind of were ignoring it. What were you doing?
Yeah, I must admit, if somebody walked in and said, here's a watch, a little watch. A friend of ours gave us this watch for you. It's a Rolex watch.
Right.
I mean, I wear a Swatch. And that's as much as I would ever spend on a watch, number one, but as much as I could afford. And I mean, and he doesn't think that somebody handing him a $6,000 watch, there's not something wrong with that. Bizarre.
Yeah, it's very. It just speaks of poor judgment, and I think which is something he kind of admitted to on the stand. I was neglectful. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't I couldn't stand my wife, and I would work late, so I would have to avoid her. It was that sort of thing, and it just doesn't speak well.
I think it's a bad mix of a combination of power and greed. It's not like he needed the money.
Mm-hmm. Well, they had some serious financial problems.
They did, but I think that sort of came about because of their greed, right? So as they got higher and higher in power, and then their greed became bigger and bigger, it just sort of all clouded everything.
Yeah, I'm telling you. 22 minutes after the hour now, and Nahal Toosi here from Politico. And there's a new trend in politics. We'll talk when we come back. Democrats actually racing to get off the ballot, not on the ballot. What's going on? 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did Did you celebrate the victory? Did you take a chance?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Did you commit to change the world?
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. Donuts coming up next. Now, you're happy to hang around for the donuts if you would
Is
like.
he bringing actual donuts?
Yeah. Are you kidding? He better be. Wait a minute.
You can't smell them already?
No, but yeah. We do a lot of food and booze on weekends, Fridays.
I was saying earlier that I was really hoping he'd have a carb-free option for a
Forget
donut.
it. If you want a carb-free
That's a
donut.
pipe
It's
dream.
like my white whale of nutrition. You know? Like, I really want that.
What would that even be? How do you think a carb-free donut?
I don't want to.
I guess they just call it air
Yeah,
or
right,
sugar.
right.
What's going on with these Democrats trying to get off the ballot? They're not trying to help the Republicans in doing so. In Alaska, we've seen it, and now in Kansas in the Senate race.
Well, it's a strategy where they just simply think, like, look, this independent or whatever, like in Kansas, has a better shot at defeating this Republican than we do. And so therefore, if we get off the ballot and this independent wins, he may caucus with us at some point. We might have some influence, whereas if we just lose, we lose. It's a strategy. And you know, it's remains to be seen whether it'll work. I mean, some of these guys, the guy in Kansas, for instance, is insisting that he is really an independent and he is not necessarily going to promise to caucus with any one particular party. So,
yeah,
it's a gamble, but
it is a gamble. But look, there are two independents now: Angus King and Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
They both caucus with the Democrats.
Right.
I'd say it's better to have an independent than a Republican.
Well,
I say that as a Democrat. And so you're right, it's a gamble, but I think if it works, it's a pretty brilliant strategy.
if it works. But, you know, the thing also is about the Republicans these days is they are under such pressure to really be Republicans and not work across the aisle.
And we have to leave it right there. Nahal Toosi, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. All right, see you again soon.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go. 33 minutes after the hour now on a Friday, September 5. You know, we are, you regular viewers and listeners will know that we're kind of foodies around here. And particularly so at least once a week, usually on a Friday, we like to just get off the politics for a while and talk about some of the latest food or drink offerings here in our nation's capital. And we go from the very finest food down to the most basic stuff that everybody loves. And we are there today with donuts, thanks to District Doughnut. It's a brand new shop in Washington, D.C., opening on Capitol Hill a week from today.
Indeed.
Is that right? Yeah. Greg Menna is the founder and the owner of District Doughnut on 8th Street, Barracks Row, right here in our neighborhood. Greg, congratulations. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much, Bill.
And
it's
you
great
brought
to be here.
So, Peter Rockburn, you've met here. Peter, not all of those donuts are for you.
What?
I just want
This is garbage.
You're going to have to share.
Yeah, damn
It's kind of something we're all about.
I'm really, really curious. How did you get, you are young. How did you get into the donut business?
We're quite a young team.
Yeah.
Our team is a team of three, 26, 26, and 27. District Doughnut's just the product of the vision of three young entrepreneurs. It's that simple. Juan Pablo Segura and myself were lifelong childhood friends, went to high school together in this area. We've grown up, been in this area our whole lives.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay.
And then we met the piece that is needed to start a gourmet pastry business, and that's a pastry chef.
A pastry chef, right.
She had just moved here from Buffalo, New York, and had been working at a high-end club in New York, in Buffalo, serving, creating plated desserts that were no budget and, wonderful and fancy things. And she just moved here and wanted to start something new, wanted to kind of cut her teeth in a bigger market, in a very burgeoning food town, Washington, D.C. And she met Juan Pablo, and he said, I have an idea, and I need you. And she kind of looked at him, okay. He said, it's donuts, but they're really high-end. She said, no way.
Now, can you make it, do you think, is your vision just on your business plan, just on donuts?
Our business plan currently is based only on donuts and coffee. It's donuts and coffee. We're trying to take, like you said, something basic. That was how you started, something basic, and we're trying to raise it to the level that food is now in D.C. The tastes of people in D.C. have risen to expect something more cosmopolitan, something more like New York, something more like Chicago, and there are concepts similar to what we're doing in those cities, and they're extremely successful.
So is Doughnut the new cupcake?
Well, some say that. However, the kind of one bone I have to pick with that is donuts have been sold for nearly 100 years. 100 years, yeah. And
like even lowbrow donuts, right? Like gas station donuts. It's confession time, right? Like I'll still mess with a gas station donut.
To be honest, that's how this was born. Juan Pablo and I ate donuts like crazy growing up together, and then we kind of realized one day there's only another DD donut company, and that's pretty much all we have to choose from. And he said, let's make something better that's in line with the kind of the rising culture of this city, and this is the result. Yeah.
Now, I have a cousin of mine has a packaging firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and one of his biggest customers, he makes the boxes that they ship in, is Georgia Cupcake.
Georgetown Cupcake?
Georgetown, I'm sorry.
Really?
Georgetown Cupcake.
Oh, I'd like to be introduced to that.
Well, you will, but my question is your vision and hope that you can be so successful that you will export your donuts or have nationwide distribution?
Oh, it would be fantastic. We certainly have a...
Do you have a website yet?
We do, districtdoughnut.com, and it's the full spelling of donut, the proper spelling, Doughnut.
None of this DONOT.
No, it's shortened. It's shortened, and it kind of forced its way into the dictionary, and and we kind of see that the spelling is actually pretty meaningful. Donut, the shortened spelling, is representative of kind of a shortened product, and ours is certainly not that, as you can see if you've been looking at them.
What's the difference between
I want to open these boxes now. I mean,
it's time.
Enough talk here.
The smell, it's enough. But
my question is, what's the difference between a gas station donut and these? Is it ingredient? Is it technique? What is it that
the
sets
smell
it
is
apart?
right. The smell
is. The brown butter is an overwhelming
What are
aroma.
those? Is a brown butter donut?
That's right. So I'll use the brown butter as an illustration of what is different.
If I hold these up,
look at that.
Nice.
Ooh, those are beautiful.
They really are.
That's right.
Brown
a signature
butter.
touch. The zebra striping.
Yeah,
really pretty too.
So that's the difference. I'll use these as an illustration.
They're works of art.
Yeah. So that's the difference
And
between
they taste good too?
a gas station donut and a district donut. The difference is the level of quality. Please, you can take as many as you'd like.
Thank you.
So the difference is comes from the ground up. The product is designed with a specific kind of flavor profile in mind, just like a fine dessert would be. And by that I mean each dough for each donut is specific to the donut.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, really?
So that's what's
intense.
That's what's most artisan would be the word, I guess, about it. But all that really means is you're actually taking quality seriously. For most donuts, a gas station donut, like you said, you would use the same dough for any of the varieties, and you just put chocolate on top, or you'd put some kind of bucket processed jelly in the middle. But no, for the brown butter, it's a cinnamon dough, and it's tossed in cinnamon sugar and has a brown butter icing on top.
Whoa.
For the dulce de leche, which you'll eat next, it has a fresh vanilla bean dough. So I mean, we're talking taking vanilla bean pods, scraping it out, and that's what's in the doughs. For the key lime pie, you'd have a fresh key lime juice and fresh key lime zest in the dough. So that's the difference. That's the difference.
How good is that donut?
How good is that donut?
Yeah.
You have a key lime pie.
We do.
Donut?
We do. Yes, it's kind of a more summer one. It might be. It's going to be going away. You unfortunately might have missed it at one of our soft openings. It snuck in for a few hours and then snuck out again.
You're not open right now, are you?
We're not. But we don't have to be.
These
because
are nuts.
We're
These
open
are so
in the Bill
good.
Press studio right now.
Yo.
They are really, really
And
good.
you haven't even had the dulce de leche. The
Now,
dulce
you
de
make
leche
these
is,
on site.
and that's the other part of our concept that differentiates it. We wanted to do something where it's real, where you see the people making it. It's certainly more expensive, which we were fully aware of and are even aware of even more now. But it's excellent, and that's what we feel. We feel excellence requires doing the steps to get to excellence. You can't shortcut there, and so part of that is for customers to come in and see. Okay, that's where the product's coming from. I see all the people that have touched that thing. the ingredients were combined in a mixer, and they mixed it around. They came out and with their hands they rolled it, and then they cut it out with their hands, and then it was fried lightly, and it's a very delicate and hands-on process.
You know what this tastes like, and I mean this in the best possible way, is like an elephant ear at the fair. Like the disc of fried, like really good fried dough with the cinnamon and sugar.
Except you don't have to be upset about eating it.
Yeah, right. Like this is obviously way better. It's like that on steroids, but it's so good.
I'm glad to hear that. That's the first time we've been. One of these has been compared to a state fair elephant ear. I love it. They remind everyone of something that's has some nostalgia to them.
Yeah.
No, all I know is I came in here. There's my gym bag. I'm going to the gym right after the show. I came in here. To myself that I was going to have just half a donut.
Well, you haven't had the dulce de leche yet.
But I just ate a whole one of those. I couldn't stop.
They're like vitamins. They're like vitamins.
I love it. Yeah.
That was so good. All right, how about the next one? The dulce de leche.
The dulce de leche was inspired kind of by Juan Pablo, one of the business partners, and he's from Argentina. His parents actually moved to the United States the day after their wedding in Argentina, and just kind of launched an entrepreneurial career, and that's kind of where Juan Pablo got that in his blood.
That gets me. The
Absolutely.
Captivates you.
It's dulce de leche imported from Argentina, which
dulce
de leche is essentially Spanish for the best caramel on earth, and then it's a fresh vanilla bean dough, and it actually has dulce de leche pastry cream inside. So it's a double dose of dulce. So
is there a small one I could take?
That's sure. That's one that happened to come out slightly smaller, but and it has
whatever you have to tell yourself, dude. Yeah, you got the smaller one. Okay.
Yeah,
Don't worry, they're carb free.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
I will feel less guilty. I hope you tell me
they're
you don't.
Beautiful donuts. By
no, they are.
I hope our chef is listening or watching, because I appear to walk all over this city and take her glory, and I have no desire to, because I didn't design these. I hope she's listening.
If
you
your
are,
chef gets some plaudits on your website, right? People go to districtdonut.com.
Oh, of course, yes.
Don't forget, spell it all out. DOUGH.
That's right.
Districtdonut.com.
Holy cow!
So you open next Friday.
Next Friday we'll be opening in the morning, and it'll kind of be just some regular hours. The thing that's different with us is we will close when we sell out. And that's the way it's going to work. We will not stay open indefinitely, especially for the first several months of opening. We have so much to learn about the neighborhood and about kind of time and windows of busyness. So we'll be closing upon sellout. We'll be opening at 8 a.m. next Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday we'll have more kind of festivities around the opening. Some fun. We have a hashtag we call Dough Face, and it's Show Us Your Dough Face. And so we'll have some games going on around that, and photo booth. We love interacting with our customers. That's our whole reason for existing, is just to serve something delicious and to serve it with joy. And so that's kind of, it's simple. We're donuts and coffee.
Opens on the 12th. So you'll make so many donuts, however many you make. Mm-hmm. For that morning, and when you sell out,
we'll close for the day.
Those are good.
What time do you start making them in the morning?
So that's the part that makes the donut business really tough.
Yeah.
It's funny enough, but this is an incredibly kind of high maintenance and specific product. You got to go when it's ready.
Yeah.
Yeast is a temperamental thing, and so our chef Christine for 2 years was basically every night would be 1 a.m. until 7 a.m. And that's and then she's also a graphic designer. So everything you see, logo, everything, she designed everything else. So if I'm able to talk a lot, she's able to do a lot. And so that's it. It takes a long time, and there's a 2-hour window in there. You can't speed up or slow down because it's yeast. It's the proofing. It's you're up to the mercy of the product. And that's why people buy donuts. That's why they don't make them. It takes a long time. Yes.
These are so good.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed.
I can't thank you enough for coming in, and congratulations again on your launch. Very, very exciting. We'll be down there next weekend.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And spread the word. Have a link up on our website.
Definitely. And we have a Twitter as well. DC Doughnut. Same spelling of donut.
DC Doughnut.
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it won't be long before you'll be able to get them wherever you live in this on the planet. Particularly here in this country, from District Donut. Best donuts anywhere in the country.
That's what I would say. I've eaten them everywhere.
Right
and
here.
you can trust me too. I was a personal trainer 3 years ago. I'm not kidding. So.
Right here on 8th Street.
Pretty wide swing of the pendulum there.
It is. I love it. Thanks, Greg. Thanks
Thank
so much
you.
for coming in. District Doughnut. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the Donut Shop.
Man.
Oh, my God.
Yo.
I can't believe I've had 2 donuts.
I mean, I wasn't going to out you and tell you that you'd had 2 donuts.
But they were both carb-free.
Yeah.
So I don't feel so badly about it. We do have some job numbers.
Yes, we do have job numbers, Bill. The economy added 142,000 jobs in the month of August. The unemployment rate fell slightly to 6.1%. So they had expected a little bit of a bigger job growth, but look, more jobs added. It's good news.
Under 100,000, absolutely good news. And donuts, and it's Friday. And you know what? On a Friday, what we like to do is we like to eat donuts.
We get dulce de leche all over this whole damn studio.
I know, I do.
There's caramel everywhere.
But we also like to look back at our favorite sound bites of the week. We start at the bottom, work our way up to the top quickly here. Starting out with President Obama, who says persistence is what pays off in more ways than one.
Number 5.
We'll break those folks down. We'll just stay on them. We'll just keep at it. You know, that's how I got Michelle to marry me. I just wore her down. Persistence. You just stay at it.
President Obama on Labor Day. Michael Sam. Rams might have dropped him, but the Cowboys picked him up, and he said he's there to help them win.
Number 4.
Any way I can use my my speed or things I learned at St. Louis, anything I can do to help this team win games. And you know, I'm hungry for to be on the team and help a team win, and I'm sure that Dallas wants to win as well.
Good for him and good for the Cowboys. Well, President Obama, he may not have a strategy for dealing with ISIS, but Joe Biden does.
Number 3.
We will follow them to the gates of hell until they are brought to justice. Because hell is where they will reside. Hell is where they will reside.
Give them hell, Joe.
Give 'em hell, Joe.
Right. You follow them to the gates of hell. And yes, we mourn the loss of Joan Rivers, and her funeral will be held on Sunday. They don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what they're going to do. Joan Rivers herself said, "Here's what I want."
Number 2.
I want paparazzi. I want publicists making a scene. I want it to be Hollywood all the way. Don't give me some rabbi rambling on. I want Meryl Streep crying in 5 different accents.
I can't hear that often enough.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, she does. And she also wants to be sure that she is dressed in the finest possible.
Number 1.
I want to look gorgeous. Better dead than I do alive. I want to be buried in a Valentino gown. I want Harry Winston to make me a toe tag. I want a wind machine so strong that even in the casket, my hair will be blowing more than Beyonce's on stage.
Oh, my God.
How many people get to call what they want at their funeral, on tape for everyone to know?
And it's such a classic fashion, too.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. She said, wanted to look better dead than alive.
Yeah.
Joan Rivers dead yesterday at the age of 81. Whoa. Donuts and sound bites, what a way, and good job numbers, what a way to wind up the week. Only thing left is a parting shot. I'll be back with that next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning
If you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
And unfortunately for the two leading characters, this one did not have a happy ending. While he was governor, as you know, Bob McDonnell and his wife Maureen lived high and mighty thanks to businessman Johnny Williams. They set up special meetings for him with state agencies, threw a big party. In return, Williams showered them with over $165,000 in personal loans and gifts, including a $6,000 Rolex for the governor and vacations to fancy resorts. Williams even paid for their daughter's wedding. On the witness stand, McDonnell insisted there was no quid pro quo, and he blamed it all on his wife Maureen, claiming that she was the greedy one, and he never really knew what was going on anyway because they weren't on speaking terms. But the jury didn't buy it. They found McDonnell guilty on 11 out of 13 corruption charges, and his wife guilty on 9 of them. Just think, 2 years ago, they were saying that Bob McDonnell might go all the way from the State House to the White House. Instead, he's going from the State House to the Big House. That's my parting shot for today, folks. It's been a great week. Thanks for being with us. David Ignatius, a great columnist for the Washington Post, will be here in studio with us on Monday. So go out and have a great weekend, rest up, and come back and see us on Monday morning. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.